So here is from earlier today, Jason Scheer. Actually, this is late last night. Jason Scheer, who covers Arizona. From what I have been told by high-ranking source, it would be a surprise to the Pac-12 presidents if an acceptable deal is presented this week. There will be an update, and the hope that it will be more. Kind of, you get the opinion. You get the feeling there.
More complete than the previous one.
Thank you, Craig. More complete than the previous, at least, discussion. Then you have Dennis Dodd. Now, I know both these guys have been on the Pac-12 pretty good. It's not like they wake up, how can I piss them off today? But Dennis Dodd, no movement expected today on the Pac-12 media rights, despite reports, meetings with league presidents. Industry sources remain perplexed by who the main linear TV partner would be.
Yeah, it's just going to be more of the same until it's not, over and over and over again. Until we actually have a deal that's announced and they say this is what it is, it's going to be more of the same. More of them either supposedly kicking down the can down the road like it appears to us, or just more of these, prolonged negotiations that they've had. And, if they're not going to have anything to announce tomorrow, like they let out earlier this week, then there's nothing that they're going to hear today that's going to be ready, because if it was ready, then they could go ahead and announce it tomorrow, which would be the perfect day to do it. But now, since they're not going to be able to do that, they're just going to have to keep on and going until they get there, and whatever happens will happen. And there's so many factors in this. Look, Stanford's president just had to resign, so they're going to have an interim that's stepping into these things. So there's another, one party of this who has to vote on it. And there's a lot of weird stuff going on in the Pac-12 right now.
He gets to keep that role, I think, until sometime in August, if not the end of August. So he's still a part of it. He just is going to be at some point the president at Stanford.
Yeah, he's in charge, or he's in that position still until his contract runs out, which is next month. So, that's not like
the TV going to be done by the time his contract runs out?
I I wouldn't bank on it given where we are right now. And there's been an incredible amount of reasons for why the delay keeps occurring. If you want to consider it a delay, some people call this just business as it was supposed to be all along, which, it's harder to spin the longer this goes on. I mean, you've got one of the main Pac-12 reporters themselves who put out there without, a gun to his head many weeks ago that if they didn't have something done by now, it would be disastrous. And he's now walked that back, surprisingly. And I think everybody who thought that there was probably going to be something that popped off this week have probably walked that back, or at least have changed their tune, which is disappointing. I think just for all outside observers, and I think most of all for the Pac-12 folks themselves. Look, you can look at this and see people poking fun and think of Big 12 folks, shut up or whatever, or ACC folks or whoever's, making fun of the situation. But, nobody deserves to be more upset or annoyed by this than the Pac-12 fans themselves, right? So it's not like it's, ha-ha, laughing at Utah guy. Well, I guess some people are probably doing that, but it's more or less like, everybody should be kind of wondering at this point, what the hell? Nobody more so than the Pac-12 fans themselves. So, I'm sure there's a lot of that going on. It's a really interesting situation that we've arrived at this point, and tomorrow we will actually have to hear from George Kliavkoff. He will speak, and no idea what he's going to say outside of just the customary welcome to media day and all of that stuff. But it's only a one-day event, which is unique in its own right. Most conferences have it over at least a couple of days. SEC, we know this week, has it over 4 days, which I think is a bit ridiculous. I don't know about you guys, but that's a little overkill. But most are 2 days. They just have that one day tomorrow. So they're going to have to pack a mighty punch into those few hours they have, and Kliavkoff's will certainly be right at the top of the list of what people are looking forward to hearing. And I know that I'm looking forward to hearing what he has to say, and we'll all hear that, and then we'll go our separate corners to figure out what all that means. But like I said yesterday, the fact that we're even here at this spot and we're still talking about them having meetings about meetings that aren't even about final results, I think is just ridiculous. And last night I was sitting here looking through various tweets and stuff, and various Pac-12 articles. Some of them newer, some of them older, and particularly I was reading a lot of the San Diego State stuff because the Mountain West commissioner came out and she spoke about letting them back in the conference, and she was very clear that this San Diego State move is like for next year. Like that's pretty much it that you can guarantee. And she said that because she said that in so many words. It's because you just can't predict the landscape now. And, especially if you're a conference like the Mountain West, like you're not pulling the strings. You don't control everything. So she made it sound like, hey, everything's hunky-dory for right now. But after, but nothing's completely settled. And I was just sitting there wondering, and I know that there's this question that's now been asked as well of like, if you're bringing on teams, wouldn't they need to be a part of the TV deal from the beginning? Like this whole order of business is just very confusing of finalizing a TV deal and then adding new schools. Like why would that not be in reverse order? Why would that not be figured out yet at the very bare minimum of, okay, you're going about your order the way you think it needs to be gone in, but to get to this point and you still don't even have the deal, much less the expansion part of it, I think is just that's wild to me. And I never would have thought that, if you had asked in January of where this would be, I wouldn't think you'd be entering media day in less than 24 hours and not have any of that part of the puzzle seemingly figured out just yet.
You mean the Pac-12, if they're working on their new media deal that would include both San Diego State and possibly SMU first?
Yeah, why would they have not invited them and then you work on the TV deal with the teams that are going to be in the conference? Why would you work on a deal, get that deal, and then add the teams after the fact? It just seems like it's backwards to me in a way. But I get that you have to have the numbers in hand to know that you can add them and it'd be value, but aren't you negotiating with them in mind? Aren't you going to the TV partner saying, hey, and we've got San Diego State and SMU, and so you're working the deal that way, right?
Yeah, because it's different in the Big 12. Like the Big 12 can add later on because they've already made their deal.
And they have the pro rata.
And they had the...
Based on maybe who's added.
Yeah, and they also had... maybe the Pac-12 thinks that they can do that, but the Big 12 also did this knowing who at least their 12 teams would be. And if the Pac-12... would have that kind of same thing, I would think especially you'd want to add before you negotiate the deal, or maybe you can't just because you don't know who it's going to be. You can't add them and tell them here's what you're getting because you don't know.
And that's why we've seen the retreat from San Diego State. But that part of it's just confusing to me, the order of it and how that part's working to where now, you've got the expansion piece may not even be, very firmly on the table at this point. It's all amazing that we're here, and I can't wait to hear George Kliavkoff tomorrow.
Yeah, it will be interesting, and obviously there will be questions, and perhaps there will be something that is an answer. We had David Ubben of The Athletic